today I'm here with Hank. Hank is a dog that's a little human aggressive, so that's why he's behind the barrier. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use behavior adjustment training to teach Hank to sniff the ground instead of barking and protest at him. Now, I've got the treats I'm using here are the Tundras, and these are freeze-dried dog treats, and when they kind of get demolished, they form kind of a dust like this. I'm making a little bit of a mess in here. Basically, for behavior adjustment training, what we want to do is give the dog a replacement behavior and help them practice a different behavior. As ironic as it seems, some dogs have to practice not attacking or barking. Now, he was adopted about 6 weeks, and I think a lot of his issues are related to being insecure about not being properly socialized when he was a puppy, and then growing up in probably not the best environment. So he's barking, and he wants me to leave. That's what he's trying to accomplish. Well, behavior adjustment training, we want them to also understand there's another option for that. If I feel like he's barking me saying I'm too close to him, he wants me to move further away. Well, there's another way to achieve that goal, which is for him to move further away. So his guardian that's there, I'm going to have his guardian eventually move away, and I'm going to sprinkle some stuff on the ground. Right now what we're going to do is I'm going to have you grab a handful of cheese, and he's going to sprinkle some cheese on just on the floor on the other side of the fence deal. Now, before you sprinkle it, just kind of stand right there and just pull it out of your hand out of the bag and just kind of freeze. Hank! So I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit about Hank's behavior. Hank! Hey, buddy. Are you going to bark for me? No, he's more interested in getting the treat. There we go. So now I'm going to use this stuff to begin with, and I'm going to sprinkle it down here on the floor. Hank! So when dogs are around other dogs and they want to be calm, or they want the other dog to tell the other dog to calm down, they'll sniff the ground. This kind of simulates or emulates that behavior. Now, if you're doing it at home, I've already kind of made friends with him, so I used some dog psychology tricks, and so he's feeling a lot more comfortable. I was hand feeding him treats, but if you saw my hand was out there, if you have a guest doing that, he'll probably get bit. So make sure your guest stays safe. This barrier just is a nice way to help us. I'm going to have you do the same thing. Just kind of sprinkle it right here where this stuff is. There you go. And so this is just some cheddar cheese, shredded, so it takes him a little bit longer to eat it. Now, Luna is the Catahoula, and if you're doing this at home and you have a dog that's food aggressive, you would not have the other dog here. But basically, because of this, instead of him barking at me, now he's more interested in getting the cheese that's on the floor. So what I'd like the guardians to do, and I'll kind of get down so that this is a little bit of a better shot, but basically what I like the guardians to do when they're practicing having people come over, first of all, set him up for success. Take him out for some exercise ahead of time. Get a dog backpack, do the creative, other alternative ways of exercising your dog that I shared off camera. And then before they come over, he needs about 15 or 20 minutes after the exercise completes before they knock on the door. As long as he's still breathing heavy, and we call that dry panting, he's not ready. He's too worked up. We want him to settle down. And he probably will lay down on the floor and kind of chill out. Then you have your friends come over. When your friends come over, I would have your friend stand here and I would leave him in here. If the other dogs are helpful, leave them in here. If they're hurtful or they cause it to be worse, like we have a little miniature Dachshund who likes to bark a lot. If that dog's going to bark and protest and say, I don't like him here, that can make him more worked up. So basically what we're going to do, and right now they're pretty good and relaxed, normally what I would do is if you want to go grab a seat right there at that table, that's a good distance. Now the distance that people are to Hank is going to be the determining factor of when he gets reactive. The whole point of bat training is you want this sort of behavior from the dog. You don't want the dog reacting. Once he's reacting, barking, lunging, growling, all those things, he's basically above threshold, and it's basically a dog version of hysteria, being hysterical. He's not going to hear anything that you say. And so the guardian mentioned earlier he was trying to pull him away from, they had some guests over and the dogs at the door, and the dog wouldn't let the guests in the house. Well, that could also be that the guardian was worried she made the dog feel powerful. I wouldn't worry so much about that, but I would worry more about the dog practicing that behavior, saying, well, I can now go charge the door and make these people not come inside. And then he thinks he can do some things that we don't want him to do. So basically what we do is we'd sprinkle some cheese or some Tundra or whatever it is on the floor before the guests come in and let him kind of get into it. Now, right now I have him right here against the fence. I would probably have some a little bit further, maybe where that doorway is, about halfway distance between the guardian and the dog. And then I would have the other guardian go and answer the door. Now, the doorbell is a cause for the dogs to get excited, and so he's probably going to get worked up. So what you might want to do is have your guest, and this would be why it'd be helpful if you have a neighbor who can do this for you. So the neighbor basically comes over, and you guys are sitting in here, one of you sitting over there, and somebody rings the doorbell, the neighbor does, but none of you get up. And this is something you could set up, actually, now that I think about it ahead of time, you can set this up for success by actually having a neighbor, one of you guys come home, and then just be standing by the door. Now make sure that he can't see any movement. You have shades by the windows, and so he can't see that anybody's out there, even the reflection of the person. The idea is to ring the doorbell and have you guys all sitting here and not blinking, not responding to the doorbell at all. And that person should ring it once, then go away. Now, if there are dogs in here, he won't be able to see the door as long as he's not looking at it when the person walks up. So you should walk up, ring the doorbell, and just go back home. So every once in a while, the doorbell rings and nobody comes up and there's no excitement associated. We want to disassociate or desensitize the dog. Yeah, you can stop that. The dog's going straight for the cheese on the table. But the idea is to help the dog associate when the doorbell rings, that doesn't always mean people are coming inside. So he's not quite so worked up. So you do that by practicing that. So every time you guys come home, before you pull the garage, pull in the street, walk up the door, ring the doorbell, get in your car and drive around the block. And, yes, I know. That's I want a treat, not I'm aggressive. And never punish a dog for growling. Growling is a warning. It's a warning. And if you punish a dog for growling, a lot of times they'll go, that's fine, I'll go straight to a bite. All right, go ahead and call him away.
Hey, come here.
Let me give him a treat. In your pocket, there you go. And give him a treat and say the word away.
Hank. Hank.
Away.
Away.
There we go. So we want to create a command word. Away means to move away from the person. So when Hank comes over and starts growling, I want you to call him again. So the idea is we're helping Hank practice moving away. As I talked about at the beginning of this video, what Hank wants to accomplish is he wants me to move further away. In this case, he might want more treats. Well, the treats are away from the person. Or if he moves away from the person, if he's saying, I don't like David this close, and he moves further away, he gets a reward, and he accomplishes his goal of increasing the distance. But what the dog basically do is to practice being around humans without this. Now, if he's barking and then we call him away, then that could eventually he would say, I go bark, and then I come get away to get a treat. So what you really want to do is you want to learn and watch your dog's body language. When you're watching this video, when Hank came over here, his ears might have moved. I wasn't looking, so I couldn't tell you. But his tail might have gone up. His teeth might have, he might have bared his teeth. He might have taken a deep breath. He might have lowered his head. His hackles might have gone up. He might have breathed really heavily or stopped breathing. The idea is to recognize your dog's warning signs and call them away before they bark or react. Once they start barking and reacting, you're not going to really reach them and they're not learning anything. The whole point is to get them out of trouble before they react. Now, the distance is going to be appropriate, going to be a factor. I'm right here. I'm very proximate and close to this fence. If your guests are sitting there, maybe on the far side of this couch, and they're sitting facing this way, front facing is confrontational, sideways is more approachable. So they come in when they actually, so again, you've set them up for success by getting the dogs not as excitable when the doorbell rings. And every once in a while, you can also just like knock on the wall or the floor, and then not have them go to the door as well. So they hear this knocking, and now it's no longer associated with it. So I'd spend a week knocking and ringing the doorbell a ton without anybody coming in through the door. And before you start doing this, it might be even longer. And then again, instead of being this close, I'm doing this for camera values, but the person would be way at the end of the couch, and they're not telling the dog anything. They're not looking at the dog. Eye contact could be a challenge. So you're just going to sit there. And then basically, you're going to have sprinkled the cheese on the floor. I would do maybe a strip in the middle of the hallway from there to your living room. Another one maybe a little bit here, and another one right here. So dog can move to whatever distance he wants, and there's a little cheese there. Eventually, it'd be more strategic and just do one strip. Maybe you do it just right here or wherever it is. And play around with where you put it until you find the zone the dog feels comfortable with. Now, as the person comes by and doesn't try to pet him or look at him or talk to him, after a while, Hank's going to get more comfortable with him. Then you can move the cheese a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Yes.
Hank. Hank. Come here. Come here, Hank.
So this is, now you see, he's immediately stopped. I don't think he's an aggressive dog. I think he's an insecure dog and didn't develop a lot of social skills and is learning he can move people away. So the BAT training or behavior adjustment training is a great way for him to practice being around people, not acting aggressively, and having something positive happen, getting a treat. So I'm going to talk to the guardians off camera about some other things they can do with the dog, like teaching him how to catch so the guests can play catch with him and different things along those lines. But really, more than anything else, we want him to practice being around people without barking, blustering, or growling. This is Hank, and these are some tips and tricks.
Hank!
Hold on one sec before you stop it. So again, you're going to want to try to do that before he starts barking. All right, so while he's distracted, this is Hank. This is how you can use BAT or behavior adjustment training to help a dog stop acting aggressively around people it doesn't know.